ARod always said and has maintained throughout this that Bud Selig has a personal vendetta against him, that this is a witch hunt against him. Gus, do you think that's true?
Not particularly. I think ARod has sort of put himself in the crosshairs because he has brazenly cheated over and over again. And this was actually there's an interesting angle to this, which is, it actually wasn't Selig who was calling the day-to-day shots in the biogenesis stuff. It was Rob Manfred, who, upon Selig's retirement, he's been rumored to be the heir apparent.
Sure.
And we obtained the transcript of Rob Manfred during ARod's arbitration hearing, in which he defended he defended the actions of the Department of Investigations and MLB. And so it's this fascinating departure from the apathy or perceived apathy of Bud Selig to a guy who really charged hard at ARod and the other biogenesis players.
It's such an interesting twist, though, because then you guys outlined this therapeutic use exemption, which ARod was granted twice, one of which was during his 2007 MVP season. How would you characterize baseball's role in the therapeutic use exemption? This is something that's collectively bargained between the players and the league. How much did they know, and how much did they give the green light to?
It's hard to know exactly who knew what and when with these exemptions. You're absolutely right. It's a part of the collective bargaining agreement that has been hashed out through this push and pull with the union over decades. And it's not unusual, actually. The World Anti-Doping Agency has a similar exemption policy for their athletes, for Olympic athletes, where they can appeal to a medical committee and ask for an exemption. What's unusual in this case is that getting an exemption for testosterone is very difficult at the World Anti-Doping Agency. And it's also very rare in baseball because, as Rob Manfred said in this testimony we saw, a lot of medical experts feel that one of the only reasons someone as young as Alex would need testosterone would be prior steroid use to cause
someone
his
in his
body to
early
stop being.
30s.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So the thought is there should be a very high bar to overcome for this. But, in terms of how it worked for Major League Baseball, this was the process they set up, and at least according to the commissioner's office, they wouldn't necessarily know who got what exemption unless it came up later in an arbitration hearing.
It's interesting. One thing caught my eye out of the book. You talked to people who knew Alex Rodriquez going back to high school.
Mm-hmm.
They seemed scared of him. A couple of quotes. Alex has a lot of connections. I'm out of baseball, but I still want to make a living. And another guy saying, man, I like sleeping with both eyes closed. I don't want to sleep with one eye open.
Right.
Is ARod that influential, or is this paranoia on the part of the people who knew him?
I think it might be a little bit a mix of his reputation and also thinking realistically. He's very powerful in the institution of baseball, especially in Miami. Even
still?
He's given millions of dollars to the University of Miami. He shows up there to take batting practice. He's close with all the players that go through there, all the coaches. And if you want to make it in youth baseball or in any sort of organized baseball in Miami, you usually have to deal with the University of Miami. So he does have clout. And Selena Roberts in her book, she had alleged that Alex Rodriguez used steroids in high school. So when we were calling people, they almost always knew what the subject was going to be, whether or not he had been cheating since back then.
What do you guys think?
It's unclear. I don't think that there's ever going to be that smoking gun that shows for sure whether he did or not. I mean, I do think that he grew extremely reliant on steroids. That was what was at the foundation of that exemption, I believe. He likely used steroids so much that he destroyed his own natural ability to produce testosterone. And later in his career, he felt he needed that extra push, which is what brought him to Anthony Bosch eventually.
And I would just add as well, one thing we get into in the book a little bit is, at that time in high school athletics, steroid use was far from uncommon. It had showed up in a number of programs, in wrestling programs and elsewhere. People we talked to said that they believed they were readily available back at that time. Again, like Gus said, I don't think anybody's ever going to be able to say for certain what ARod was doing back then or not doing.
Yeah.
But, it's not crazy to say that at that time in Florida athletics, at the high school level, it was a pretty common occurrence for that to happen.
Hit me. Hey there, SI fans. I hope you enjoyed this clip from our daily live show, SI Now. You can find a link to the complete episode in the description box below. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe to Sports Illustrated's YouTube channel. Remember, you can watch SI Now Monday through Friday live at 1 p.m. Eastern Time only on SI.com. All right, go along. You ready? Hope to see you there.